Hello, everyone. Welcome to Chapter 8 of Theory and Practice of Counseling and Psychotherapy, and this is going to be a discussion of Gestalt therapy. And Gestalt is a It's a German word that has a lot of meaning, but it basically means the whole enchilada. Gestalt is in total; it's the whole thing. And Gestalt is something that grew out of and embodies still a humanistic approach to counseling, and is very much steeped in existentialism as well. Adler and others contributed to this. And Pearls and some of the more modern thinkers were also fairly well steeped in psychoanalytic theory. Pearls trained as a psychoanalyst, like did a lot of the other people that we've looked at to this point. And he rejected it. He came up with his own approach, his own idea. And some of the things that you're about to see, we're about to talk about here on Gestalt, you're familiar with, or at least you've brushed up against them in the past because it's become part of our more modern lexicon, including I'm okay, you're okay, that kind of stuff, right? So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to get started, and away we go. That is Frederick Fritz Perls. And I've looked at this a couple of times. I've about decided that's probably a cigarette, but I'm not going to swear to it. Looks a little bit like a joint to me. I've heard that Fritz dabbled a little bit, so maybe. Anyway, that was him in California, at San Diego, when he and Laura, when they were out there. Perls had an interesting life. He was born in the German Empire in the city of Berlin in 1893. And he's a World War I vet, so maybe he and my granddad shot at one another because that's what he was over there to do. And he came through World War I and was blamed for his loss by Adolf Hitler when he came to power because Perls was a Jew. He married Laura and fled Germany about the time Hitler was coming to power. And again, that was a good idea for a Jew in 1933. He became a doctor and a psychoanalyst. He joined the South African army over there and did whatever the South Africans were doing at that time. And was out of it by 1946, I believe. Moved to New York and founded a movement. And that's a pretty good deal on your plate. There were others involved in Gestalt therapy and in the formulation of it. Laura Perls, the lady here at the top, who's smiling prettily, contributed a great deal to her husband's work while incorporating music and dance into her own. She also is German-born, and she was about 20 years younger than Fritz, I think. She got a degree in Gestalt, as a matter of fact. But she was also an accomplished musician, a professional pianist, and very artistically bent in that way. Irving and Miriam Polster down here worked together and contributed much to the practice of Gestalt. They did trainings, they opened a school, a training institute, training center in San Diego. They wrote together, they did seminars and taught together and things like that. They retired together And soon after retirement, Miriam died, and Irving went back to work and worked for another decade or so alone, basically, in Gestalt. Gestalt prayer. This is Gestalt in a nutshell. When I said you've brushed up against these sort of things before, this is Fritz Perls from Gestalt Therapy verbatim, written in '69. I do my thing and you do your thing. I am not in this world to live up to your expectations, and you are not in this world to live up to mine. You are you, I am I, and if by chance we find each other, it's beautiful. If not, it can't be helped. I don't know. I'm hazarding to guess really which version of that you got. Almost always when you see this poem, if it is a poem, this manifesto, if it is a manifesto, whatever it is, when you see it, it's usually got the last line cut off of it. If not, it can't be helped. I've seen it a bunch of times, but it usually ends with, it's beautiful. And I think that's probably wishful thinking on somebody's part. Perls came up with an approach to counseling that's it's a very heady approach to counseling. You have to do a lot of thinking about what's going on in Gestalt, to make it work the way it's supposed to work. But in a sense is anti-intellectual, because the goal of Gestalt is to get you out of your head and into your emotions. Perls, one of his more famous quotes is that we should all lose our minds and come to our senses. This is a very active encounter type approach to counseling. It's existential in as much as you're dealing with everything and the only thing you have now, which is now, and it's encountering your life, warts and all, not trying to do any editing on it. It's phenomenological, because the way the client sees it is the most important, the world that the client sees is the most important world there is for the client. And you can't, really, when you get right down to it, you can't argue that. The world that you and I perceive, the one that we organize ourselves in and organize around us and walk around in every day, is the most important one to us. It's experiential in as much as a key element, a key philosophical element of Gestalt is much of what ails us is an attempt to corral and amputate pieces of us that we don't like, get rid of it. And we can't do that. We are who we are and how we are and all that good stuff. And it's very here and now. And here and now, again, and this is an existential concept, is an Adlerian concept, is a concept that Jesus taught in his Sermon on the Mount, and that's all you have is now. That's it. All you have is now. Everything is here and now. We live ourselves in a tiny little gap called the now, this between everything that's ever been and everything that's going to come. And that's where we live. It's not theoretical, it's not semantical, it's not a play on words, it is reality. Gestalt is the whole enchilada. And we have to accept that human beings really live from moment to moment. It's existential in that respect. Talking about your feelings is not feeling your feelings. In fact, talking about your feelings is trying to tame them. It's intellectualizing them. It's trying to make them behave. It's phenomenal. Human beings cannot be subdivided. We're a total. That's the holism. There is no piece of us that's not all of us. Does that make sense? My thoughts can make me sick. If I'm sick, my emotions, if I'm physically sick, my emotions are messed up. If my emotions are messed up, I can get sick in my mind. It's not pieces that you can separate out neatly and understand apart from the other elements, the other components of our humanness. Gestalt is kind of takes issue with behaviorists, which we'll be talking about in another chapter. But how individuals behave is more important than why. Actually, it's not that big a argument because I think behaviorists would tend to think the same way. How can we alter this behavior? If the behavior changes, that's really all that's important, isn't it? Well, maybe. Gestaltist believes that all human behavior occurs in a context. There's a background to everything that we do and everything that we experience, etc. And if we consider the substance use disordered individual, we can think about it in certain ways. Of addicts and tarpon, for instance. These are both tarpon, by the way. All of these are tarpon. That's tarpon over here, and that's a tarpon being weird, isn't it? You ever seen a tarpon caught? I've hooked a few of them. I've never gotten one to the boat. But one day in Belize, I was diving the whole Chan Cut, and I found myself right in the middle of a bunch of these guys here. They were up in the shallow water as I was swimming into shore, and next thing I know, I'm in with all of these really kind of chill-looking fish. They're just, being very chill. None of them are acting like this guy. Why is that? Well, I'm glad you asked. The tarpon is doing the chill fish thing until someone throws a lure into the water and he bites it, and then they set the hook, and now the tarpon has got something he's dealing with that he really didn't ask for. So he does some stuff that tarpon don't normally do. He's running back and forth and struggling, jumping out of the water, shaking his head, diving deep, doing all kinds of crazy untarpon-like stuff, and he freaks these guys out. They all run away from him for a little while, and then they kind of come back and look at him like, what the hell's wrong with Larry? I've never seen him act like that before. No, something's wrong with him. Don't know what it is, but something or another. And the point of the matter is, the point of fact is that Larry is hooked and being dragged possibly to his doom, and he's fighting for his life. He is fighting for his life. And if you look at what he's doing in that context, then it all makes sense. If you're looking at it as aberrant behavior that just came out of nowhere, then it doesn't make much sense. Addicts are the same way. When you're in the grips of your addiction, you've had changes in your brain that makes you feel like getting high is something that you have to do to stay alive. So both the hooked tarpon and the hooked human are struggling for their lives. The moral of the story is that it's very difficult for the unhooked to understand the behavior of the hooked ones. Does that make sense? So it's a difficult connection to make. When we have addicts who are engaged in this struggle and who are getting out of this struggle, who are trying to recover and things, Gestalt and some Gestalt techniques are some things that are things that you will see in a lot of recovery groups. And if you've been through treatment, or if you've been part of a 12-step program, or if you've ever been in a halfway house or something, you've probably seen some of these techniques and probably experienced some of this already. And maybe you did know what to call it, and maybe you didn't, but you may have experienced it anyway. Addicts are encouraged in Gestalt to allow themselves to feel. And there a lot of things that we're going to feel are negative feelings. They're not going to be good feelings. We've got a ton of sadness around losses of people, loss of self, loss of the idea of self, loss of relationships, all of that. We find ourselves angry at our present situation. Why do I even have to be in this goddamn group? Shit. You know, what did I do wrong? How did I wind up here? Anger at the present situation. I don't want to be an addict. I don't want to have to go through this. I don't want this to be me. I don't want this to be how I am. I'm afraid. Afraid of the past, afraid of now, afraid of the future. And I have grief for all the losses that I've experienced or that I am experiencing. Change, dear hearts, can sometimes feel a lot like dying. Because when I'm changing who I am, I'm giving up a piece of myself. And I may be embracing a whole another piece of myself that's better, more satisfying, better adjusted, I don't know, better dancer, better looking, whatever. But even if I'm giving up, even if I'm getting that, I'm still giving up a part of myself. And I'm giving up my drug. This is something that gets lost in substance abuse counseling sometimes with the deep grief that the addict experiences for the drug, for the lifestyle. Because that drug's been my friend. It's been there for me when people weren't. It's reliable when people weren't. It's reliable when circumstances aren't. And it feels like a friend to me. And as a friend has been stabbing me in the back and stealing my money and doing all kinds of bad things to me, but I still feel grief for it. And it's perfectly okay to feel these types of feelings, and you're encouraged to feel these types of feelings in a Gestalt group, because Gestaltists don't make distinctions between good feelings and bad feelings. They're just feelings. That's all. Everybody has them. Moreover, the thing about feelings, the responsibility of people who are providing this type of treatment is to raise the addict's awareness so that they can answer the questions. I can help them, but I shouldn't be that much of a teacher. I should help them to have the awareness so that they can answer how they are experiencing those feelings. How successful are the things that they're doing right now? How is anything you're doing helpful to you right now? How can you do better? What do you want? Where do you want to go? How do you plan to get there? Good questions. And all need to be answered in a Gestalt treatment approach. Gestaltists have a distinctive view of human nature, like most of these theorists do. And the view of human nature for a Gestaltist is the basic one, the key one, is that human beings have the capacity to self-regulate. In fact, no one else but me has the capacity to self-regulate me. I have to be self-regulating, self-directive, self-managing, all of that. I have to be pretty self. To self-regulate, I have to have awareness. I need to know what's happening around me and within me and what the relationship is, inside, outside, between, dialectically. Paradoxical theory of change is employed in Gestalt. Authentic change, real change, the change that's important to you, occurs from being who you are, rather than who you're striving to be or who you think you should be or who other people should think you should be. We sell ourselves out a lot for the idea that I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not, whatever. I'm not up to these other standards that aren't even my standards, and then I make myself miserable. So that's a piece of it. Is this revolutionary? Heck yeah. And is Pearl's revolutionary? Yes, he is. When we get into, and we'll talk about that a little more in a bit, holism is important for Pearl's. Now, wait a minute, Bushart, you told me a while ago that with holism, you're talking about the whole enchilada, and now I see right here you're subdividing people out again. Yeah, I am for the purpose of this conversation, but when we're looking at a holistic blend of all of this into a oneness, into the uniqueness that is a human being, we don't just live in one piece of this. I can't subdivide you out there in this class into, okay, 3 of you go here, 1 of you go over here, 2 more here, 3 here, 1 there. You don't do it that way. And what you do find is that if you're working with substance use disordered people and people who have other problems too, this isn't just the realm of substance use disorders, is that problems show up in these in these areas which are basically components of the human being. It's not something that we explain the totality of the human being as part of. Make sense? If I have a client in here and I start looking at the client, I discover, well, let me just say anybody. Right now, I have a physical reality. I'm in the body that I was born into many years ago. It's deteriorating right on time. I have a physical reality. I know where I am in space. I know where I am in time. I know when I'm hungry, when I'm hot, when I'm cold, that kind of thing. That's my physical reality. I also have a mental reality, and that's my thoughts. I think, therefore I am. Rene Descartes, right? Cogito ergo sum. And my thoughts are an active part of my life, and I can control them for the most part. I have an emotional reality. I feel things. And again, Pearls would encourage me not to hang labels like good and bad and right and wrong on the feelings that I have. They're just feelings. My emotions. If I'm oops, I didn't mean to do that. I do that sometimes. Y'all probably noticed. I don't mean to go forward and then go back or vice versa. I just kind of fiddle with the keyboard a little bit, and I shouldn't because it goes off, and I didn't even know it was loaded. I have an emotional reality. My physical, mental, and emotional life is affected by the drugs that I do. My body changes, particularly if I'm addicted. My thoughts are now obsessive kind of thoughts. My behavior is somewhat compulsive. My body is being hurt by the things I'm doing. As my body is being injured, it affects the way I feel. My emotions are drugged. There may be there's an old saying in vino veritas, which means that in wine there's truth, which may be, but it's a drugged truth, so that things come out twisted, even though the feelings, the thoughts may be honest. My spiritual life suffers through drug use. I will discover this when I'm talking to people. I will see when I'm assessing someone, I'll see that they're having financial difficulty, that their wife's thrown them out. They don't get invited to parties anymore. People don't answer the door when they knock. They can't hold a job any longer. Their occupations suffer, and and if you're talking about students, their schoolwork too. So all of this is affected by our drug use and our environments and our choices and just a million things that affect who we are. And what we're shooting for with Gestalt, like with a lot of the other therapies, is that H word. You remember the H word that I'm talking about? Not holism tricked you. It's homeostasis. It's balance. Holism's a part of balance, though. We also live our lives against a background that's constantly changing, and this is field theory. I think I put a clip, or I may have put the whole cartoon on for you in the course room, but this is Betty Boop with Coco the Clown right here, and back behind him you can see a hand and a foot. That's Bimbo, her boyfriend, who's also a dog, and the Seven Dwarfs. This is Snow White. And they're in a place called the Mystery Cave. And Betty's the princess, the Snow White character, you know. And if you remember the fairy tale, Snow White's mother, the stepmother, the evil queen, asked her magic mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" The mirror told the vain queen, "You know, you're pretty hot, babe, but your stepdaughter, whoa." And so she got angry and wanted the competition for beauty eradicated. And that's what's going on here. They use a process in here, by the way, called rotoscope. This clown, Coco, is doing a dance while they're singing St. James Infirmary. And Cab Calloway is the performer and his band who's singing the song. Cab Calloway is dancing, and the cartoonist basically drew frame by frame Coco over Cab Calloway. So there's actually Cab Calloway dancing in Coco's hide. It's a very cool effect. But even cooler is what's going on back here. And just between you and me, when I first saw these things, I was a child. They scared the bloody hell out of me. When I see all of these monsters and stuff in the background, these are cops who are skeletons, and, you know, the convicts who are executed, and yeah, just a bunch of stuff. But the point is, while Coco and the ostensible funeral party, Snow White's not dead, of course, that would ruin the story, but they're going down through here, and as they're going down through here and Coco's singing and dancing and the evil queen's in pursuit, the background is changing constantly. Your focus, where your eye line in this cartoon changes constantly as to what you're looking at and what catches your attention. And that, dear hearts, is field theory in a nutshell. We are constantly moving around in a background of things that are changing, and things come forward out of that background and come into sharp focus. You know, that's what's important to us at the moment, or that's what's important to us moving forward, or that's what's, you know, the most important element of what we're experiencing is the moment. It's always experienced as here and now. It's never something that you reflect upon and it was more important in the past. It's never something that you see coming, really. Clients, not therapists, need to figure out where this field theory, how this field theory is defining us, how we're defining what's important to us, and where we're going with it. Clients figure that out, not the therapist. I may have my own theories about that with you, but it's not my call, it's yours. Figure formation process is movement toward or away from a particular figure in a field of experience. It changes both perception and understanding of what's being viewed, the thing that's viewed, and the viewer. But both of these changes in the viewed and the viewer is being done by the viewer. And what happens is this reveals dominant needs, desires, priorities, again, in the now, what we're focusing on. And you can see that we run across things. I love this picture because it's that one little human figure back there. If you're a fan of The Walking Dead like I am, you're going to go towards that figure to find out who it is or what it is, or are you going to kind of just hope that it meanders off on its own? Maybe watch for the way it moves, I don't know. But when I'm doing this, when I'm having these experiences, my boundaries can be disturbed. Again, I'm out of homeostasis. I'm unbalanced in a way. What do I do? What's true? What's real? I don't know. Maybe I go toward that figure, maybe I accept it, maybe not. This is one of my favorite lines from Hamlet. When Polonius is getting ready to go on a journey, and his father, when Polonius is telling his son, who's about to go on a journey, this above all, to thine own self be true. He's giving him a lot of advice, but he says this is the most important piece. This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day. Thou canst not then be false to any man, because you're in your skin, everything fits the way it's supposed to be. Human beings do organismic self-regulation. I love Ogden Nash too. You may not have noticed, but yes, I am a lit major, and I spent a lot of time with great books, and I'm happy about that, and great poets, and I'm happy about that. And they're not all heavy and serious and stuff like Ogden Nash. There was a young belle from Natchez whose garments were always in patches. When comments arose on the state of her clothes, she replied, when I itches, I scratches. Ogden Nash. And that's organismic regulation. When we itches, we scratches. That's what we do. We get somehow out of balance, a desire, an impulse, a need, or something unbalances the organism. That's us. And we seek to regulate ourselves however we can according to the resources that are available to us in our environment and to the environment itself sometimes. We seek to get back to a balance. And the way, if we're dealing with an impulse, need, desire, etc., acquisition and attainment is usually the thing that balances us, or so we think. And very often, if I have a desire, say, I see a pretty girl out here who's not my wife, and I decide to pursue this pretty girl even though I am married, and things happen, and I may have that fulfillment of the quest, I may have that fulfillment of the impulse or the desire or whatever it happens to be right now, but there can be consequences, dear heart, and that's even if I don't get caught. That's even without being busted, without having conflict with the wife. There's things that happen to me through the process that changes who I am and how I see me. Make sense? And it's not always a pretty thing that we see. Contact and resistances to contact. Human beings sometimes don't want to see ourselves. We don't want to really know who we are. Contact with people is made by seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, tasting, moving, using the senses. That's how we contact the world around us. That's how everything contacts the world around them. I was watching some squirrels play in my backyard a while ago. They're tactile. They're touching things. They're touching the grass, the tree. They're jumping. They're sitting up on their hind legs, looking around, sniffing, doing all of this kind of stuff, making sense of the world that they live in and reveling in the fact that they're alive in it. They're chasing each other up a tree and running around having a swell time out there. And they can do that now because I don't eat as much wild game as I used to when I was young. So they're safe. Resistances to contact are also known as boundary disturbances. And Freud called some of them ego defenses. The boundary disturbances that it manifests as resistances to contact are ways for us to avoid contact with both the environment and with ourselves. Introjection, for instance. The tendency to accept the beliefs of others and assimilate them to make them congruent with who we are. when they're sometimes incongruent with who we are. Mob mentality. You put me in a large enough group and I will express, the beliefs and everything that the group expresses. We were talking in another class about how people, come to believe in AA. And it's the same way you come to believe if you join a cult, a church, which is also a cult. A cult has a bad connotation, but that's what it is. And it's just a set of like-minded believers who do and speak and believe the same way. And sometimes it's through introjection. When I come to believe what the others around me believe. It doesn't mean that it's not true, not helpful, not valid, or anything else. It just sometimes means that that's my basic contact, my reason for being there, my reason for believing is that here we are. This is what we all believe. Rudyard Kipling wrote about it in the Jungle Book, the Bandar Log, the monkey people that kidnapped Mowgli, if you remember what they said. We are the smartest, the wisest, the cleverest, the most admired people in the forest. We all say so, so it must be true. Introjection. Projection is another way of avoiding conflict with self or with other people, and that's assigning unacceptable aspects of ourselves to the environment, including other people. That pretty girl I was pursuing who wasn't my wife, she came on to me. She's the one that started this. I didn't, I was just sitting here minding my own business. And damn girl. Nope. But that's what people do. Retroflection is turning onto ourselves what we would like to do to others or have other people do to us. It's sort of like a self-abuse. I'll punish myself for having done something if there's no one else there to punish me. Or I will do to me what I think my mom and dad ought to do to me, but they're not here anymore. Deflection is another way of avoiding responsibility and contact with myself. And you'll see this up close for sure. You're in a meeting, say for instance, and someone wants to talk about, well, I don't know if I want to stay in my marriage. My husband is so mean, he's so cruel. He beats me. Last year he broke my arm, and this year he broke my nose. I don't know if I want to be. And he always says he's sorry and that he loves me and stuff like that, but I don't know if I want to do that anymore. It's really scary. And when you're listening to people are moved by these stories, we put ourselves into those stories too. So we empathize with them and sympathize with them. And then the feelings get intense, and people may be moved to tears or they're upset. Oh, holy cow. What just happened there? I touched something I shouldn't have. Let me boom, 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 boom. Where was I? Contacts and resistances. Yeah. And then someone says something along the lines of, "What is your husband an alcoholic?" Do you think that's a request for information? Do you really? Why now? Why ask that question now? Why ask that question when this disclosure she's making is getting intense and everybody's getting uncomfortable? Why do you think someone would say, "Is your husband an alcoholic?" Well, I'm glad someone asked, and one of you probably answered, but I didn't hear you. It's to deflect. Is to de-intensify the situation, is to get it back to someplace safe. I don't want to hear any more of this brutality. It's making me so cringy. I want to hear, let's talk about whether he's an alcoholic. Let's get this away from the visceral feelings that I'm having right now and back into my head where it's safe. Once upon a time, I was working with a family in the wilds of Deer Park, Texas, and there were 3 sisters. And these 3 sisters and their mom were in a blended family. they had another dad. I don't know where he was. He was off, gone with the wind somewhere. But Mom had remarried, and all three of the girls loved new dad. He treated them nice and all of that kind of good stuff. But one day in group, oldest sister, who was 17, was complaining. She said, I have an infected tooth, and I really, really, really need to get it pulled. And it's been hurting me a lot. And, it's making me sick. My jaw hurts. It's swollen. It's painful. And I asked Dad to take me to the dentist so I could get it pulled. And he said, well, we can't afford to go to the dentist. We have to wait till next week when he gets paid again. But then you know what he did? He went out and he bought a CD player and a bunch of CDs. And he didn't have enough money to take me to the dentist to get my tooth pulled, but he had enough money to buy a CD player and some CDs. And that really sucks. It hurts my feelings. I think he's basically devalued me. She didn't say it all like that, but that's the short version, Reader's Digest. Middle sister, who was like 15, I think there was like 2 years or between all of them. I'm going to assume there was 2 years between all of them. So the 15-year-old says, well, you bitch. How can you talk about our father like that? You're so damn selfish. How dare you? You know, we have a place to live because he took our mother in and he took us in. And he put a roof over our head, and he sends us to school, and he puts clothes on our backs, and he provides the food that we eat. How can you say something like that about him? You were so damn ungrateful. I never thought I'd hear you say anything like that. That's just horrible. And attacked her. Went off on her. And the third little sister blurted in, without waiting her turns, I might add, what kind of CDs did he buy? And the counselor, who's a Gestaltist and does confrontations and things like that in the group, did a very nice experiential confrontation with the little girl. And she said, honey, instead of asking what CDs your dad bought, why don't you tell your sisters what you're feeling right now? And what you want them to do. And the little girl said, stop it. Just stop it. You're scaring me. And the way you guys are talking is scary. You're gonna destroy our family. You're gonna break us up. And I don't want that to happen. So just stop it. And then things got intense once the deflection was confronted. And resistances. The contact went away and contact was made, and it was powerful and frightening and all of that. And it moved the relationship and everything very much forward from that point on. Confluence occurs too. That's when you get so involved in trying to avoid being at odds with things in your environment that it becomes almost impossible for you to separate yourself from that environment. We can't tell where we stop and somebody else begins. Now. No, really. Now is all we have. Gestalt emphasizes learning to appreciate and fully experience the present moment and everything that's in it. Consequently, Gestalt therapists, if they're going to ask you questions, they'll almost always ask what and how questions rather than why questions. What do you like about your drinking rather than why do you drink? If you ask people why they do something, you give them a lot of wiggle room, and they can... And if you ask a lot of questions, and there are a lot of why questions, people who are being questioned will, after a few of them, will decide, this guy wants me to say something particular. This woman knows the answer she wants me to give them, and then they'll go fishing, and they're just throwing stuff out there to see if that's what you want. And you don't get very far with that. But if you ask people what about your drinking do you like? How does your drinking make you feel that you appreciate? Or how's your life better when you drink? That's a lot better than wine. Then we have the issue of unfinished business, which is another, and this isn't really a new concept. This is just a new name for the concept. This is our past. This is things that happen to us. What's kind of new with a Gestalt way of thinking about it is unfinished business is the past, but it isn't really past because it's still right now and it's with us. If I told you to sit back in your chair, close your eyes, and think of the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to you, chances are in less than a minute you're going to be feeling shame, regret, maybe anger, hurt, you'll blush. That's being able to call that feeling up at will, at will. The minute you sit down and you start concentrating on it, it'll come to you, and it'll bring everything with it. Things happen to us. It's unfortunate, but it's also unavoidable. Things happen. Good things happen and bad things happen, but things happen. We naturally seek to avoid unpleasant disruptions. If pain, fear, guilt, the things that we call the bad emotions, we want them not to be there, so we try to throw them away. But we can't. What can we do with them? They're still bothering us. I know, let's stuff them. Let's swallow them. Swallowed feelings are swallowed alive, and if we don't get in touch with them, they will get in touch with us, one way or another, and it may be symptomatic. So for the Gestaltist, you're only as sick as the secrets you keep. You're only as ill as the emotions that you've walled up inside you. And unfinished business has to be finished. It has to be worked through, and that's where this term originated. The working through is a Gestalt term, and it has to be worked through to be resolved. You need to touch that trapped emotion, those blocked emotions, blocked energies, what the Gestaltists would call it, and release them. Then let it go. Nothing to it, right? You've seen the show. Piece of cake. Problem. What if I go looking? Pearl said that the unfolding of the adult personality is like peeling an onion. When you peel off one layer of an onion, what do you find? You find that there's another layer. And you peel it off and there's another layer. And you keep peeling layers. And sometimes you cry. And Pearl's layers are layers of contact. He refers to them as layers of neuroses. And there are 5 of them. That when you're going to complete unfinished business, when you're going to get in touch with who you are, when you're going to release your blocked emotions, then you have to peel these layers back. The first layer is the phony layer. It's the stereotypical me. It's not real. It's inauthentic. It's what I pretend I am, or it's who I want you to see. This is the me that I want you to see. And, you know, I really am a person who, I am who you see, in a sense. But is it really me? Not entirely. The me that you see is only 100 miles off from the real me. Then there's the me that I see, and that's a lot closer, but still a mile or so off. And then there's the real me, and neither one of us know that because I haven't been there, and I don't know when I've entirely encountered myself, or if I've entirely encountered myself. I've seen what I could see. So the challenge in the phony layer is as far as a lot of people ever get with self-awareness. Because underneath the phony layer is the phobic layer. That's the fearful one. That's the me that I'm afraid to face. I don't want to see myself. I don't want to know that guy. He scares me. The things that he might say, might be, might do, might want. I don't know. He's a scary guy. I don't know if I want to know him. And I can go looking. The big book tells me to go looking. That's what that 4 step's all about. The exact nature of my wrongs. Find out who I am as a person. And that's frightening. So I've got a couple of things working against me there. Fear, the phobic layer, and pride. Pride tells me I don't need to look. I'm okay. We're all right at this point H. You don't need to go any further. But fear tells me I damn well better not. You better not look any further, because you're looking into that abyss, right? The one that Nietzsche talked about, that abyss of existence. And not only am I looking back looking at it, but it's looking back inside me, and that's the scary part. Then there's the impasse. This is the stuck point. I give up. I can't go any further. And I've got some Gestaltist person over here sitting in the room with me, or maybe a group of them, saying, "Oh, come on, Howard, stick with it. Stay with that feeling. Experience what you need to experience." These stuck points are things that you can't go over. They're too high. You can't go under them. They're buried too deep. You can't go around them. They're way too expansive. There's only one way to get through the impasse, and that's to work through the impasse. You go right through it. And once you get through that impasse, that's the third layer, you hit the 4th layer, and that's the implosive layer. It's introspective. I'm on the other side. I've got through that thing that was stopping me. Is this me? Am I who? What? I fully experience my deadness and realize how inauthentic I've been, and how I've been selling out myself all these years and things like that. When I experience the wasteland of the implosive, then I have a release of energy, and that's the explosive. We let it go. We let go of phony roles. We release blocked energy, and it's an explosive release of blocked energy. So it involves a lot of tears, sometimes laughing, sometimes shouting, a bunch of things. But it's an explosion into pain, and it's an explosion into joy. And you can't have one without the other, because as sure as the sun comes up in the morning, pain and joy are drawn from the same well in the same bucket. If you run from one, you run from the other. Gestalt offers a process. So while we're going through all of these things, working through those layers of neuroses, experiencing contact with the environment, experiencing contact with others, etc., these are the things that will happen to the person who is a Gestalt client. There will be an increase in our awareness of ourselves. We can't not experience that, because the things that we watch other people go through in terms of this interactive environment is going to cause me to be introspective and to look at myself. I will assume ownership of my experiences, all of my experiences, not just the ones I want, not just the ones that make me feel good, but the ones that I've really had. I will develop skills and values so that I can satisfy individual needs without violating the rights of others. Very important, especially for a bunch of selfish, substance use disordered people who have spent their whole lives getting what they can get for them, and not caring much about other people. I will become aware of all my senses, all of them. I won't shut them down anymore. I'll become aware of all my emotions as much as I can, and I'll accept responsibility for myself, for my feelings, for my actions, for my beliefs, for my past, for my future, for my now. And I'll be able to ask for and accept help from others, as well as to provide help to other people. You know, a strange thing that, well, it was strange to me. It may or may not be strange to you, but I thought it was very strange that in my experience in recovery group, how many people that I saw who were getting better recovering from their substance use disorders, who were very comfortable helping other people and quite willing to do it. And would, you know, if you ask them, you know, if you needed help and you ask them, they'd be Johnny on the spot and happy to be there. And how much they could fall apart themselves and not be willing to ask someone else to help them out. And I had an experience with that. A guy told me, he said, it's pretty selfish of you, you know, to sit here and just and let things go to shit without, you know, making an attempt to reach out to people, you know. He said, you help me, and you won't let me help you. That's pretty, I think he called me a chicken shit, if you want to get right down. He says, that's pretty chicken shit to do that. If the shoe fits, you know what I'm saying? For the counselor and the client, a partnership where the client, rather than the counselor, is the expert on his or her own experience. We're going to work together, and I'm going to try to help you to make contacts with yourself and accept certain things and have certain feelings and stay with that feeling, etc. And I can be a guide. But I don't want to be too much of a teacher. I don't want to be telling you what you're feeling or telling you what you need to do next or telling you much of anything. I'm just kind of there to support you and hold a mirror up so that you can look into it. And how long you look and how deep you look is kind of up to you. You know, just to help. It's your life, your awareness, your experience. Go for it. Gestaltists pay a lot of attention. I got to run for inside the house, people, because I didn't bring a cord with me. And I hope I get there before my computer shuts down, because it decided I'm low on battery. Give me just a second. Can you live without the TV a minute, babe? I'm trying to finish this and I'm running out of battery. Hang tough, I'm almost to the cord, guys. You know what they say about assumptions, right? I assumed I had enough juice in my battery to do what I needed to do today, and I didn't. Not in the garage, anyway. So, Gestaltists pay a lot of attention to language. And it talk, for instance. You know how it is when you move to a new town and it's hard for you to make friends, and it's just difficult getting adjustment. That's separating for safety. That's pulling myself away from my own experiences. And so's you talk. Generalizing for safety, disownership of experience. When I'm talking about I'm not talking about specifics. When I'm talking about you, I'm not talking about me. I'm trying to separate myself from ownership of my experience. And again, and that's like, what was it, 6 Degrees of Separation, that movie? I take a couple of steps away from my reality, and then I'm safer. Questioning, when someone, instead of disclosing and leveling with people, decides to hide behind the mask of inquiry. I ask questions more than I ever make a statement, and that's a way of keeping myself safe. Gestaltists will see that and they'll pull them out of it. For instance, if someone is doing language that allows them to hide, if for instance I'm in a group And I go around the group, and someone in the group says, I don't feel comfortable sharing with you guys. I really don't. I mean, I'm sure you're all wonderful people and things like that, but I don't know you. And so I think I'll wait until I get a little more familiar with everyone in here before I talk about me any. And the Gestalt therapist, me, might turn to that person and say, instead of saying that you're uncomfortable in here, what I would like you to do is I'd like you to go around to the group, to each person in turn, everyone in the group, and finish this statement. I do not trust you because. And look them in the eye and tell them, I do not trust you because. And that and that kind of changes things for them. So the experience then will be one of taking risks and putting yourself out on the line and sharing why you don't trust the group, etc. This also is a point of contention with some folks with a Gestalt approach too, because that I've had people tell me, man, that's abusive. You can't do that kind of thing to people. Well, that's part of it, man. Challenging language that denies power, qualifiers, false claims, etc. I know that every guy that's in this class has probably had the experience as a teenager at some point where some girl has said, oh, you're like a brother to me. I love you, but. And you know that what comes after the but kind of negates what came before it. You're a wonderful guy, but. You're a lovely girl, but. I really would like to go out with you, but. So qualifiers maybe sometimes, but if those types of things step us back again from powerful statements. And powerful statements are expressing the real reality of our existences. It's also important to listen to the client's metaphors. Human communication is rich and it's layered, and we're hardwired to talk metaphorically. And if you think about substance use disorder people and some of the language that we use to describe our experiences, for instance, well, hey, Howard, boy, I saw Jim and he said you were really drunk Friday night. And I say, drunk? I was tore up from floor up, man. I was commode hugging, snot slinging, howling at the freaking moon, wasted. And you start thinking about the kind of language that we use to describe intoxication. It's almost all violent. It's negative language to describe the experience. Listening for language that uncovers a story is to help clients hear themselves. And I might be going along with someone that tell me, and this is an example from the book, someone says, it's hard for me to spill my guts in here. And instead of asking them, why is it hard for you to spill your guts in here, I might come back at them with, how does it feel to spill your guts in here? What is it like to spill your guts? I may make a statement at them. You mean like throwing up? You mean like cutting yourself open? What is spilling your guts? And how do you do it? What's it feel like? And when you do this, you're kind of putting people on the spot, but you're also causing them to stop and to think about what it is that they're saying and how they're saying it and what they're really expressing. Find it, feel it, let it go. Right? Let it go. Some things that Gestaltists do, exercises versus experiments. exercises are empirical, and these empirical exercises have been used before, and they're proven. That's why they're empirical. They're evidence-based. Family sculpting, which is going on here, is a proven way to access information, to dramatize relationship, to illustrate relationship in 3 dimensions with live people. Over here, you have some role playing going on in the group, which is also a Gestalt technique, where you take on, and do a rehearsal, or you act out a situation, or you practice a discussion. Down here is an empty chair, and the client is sitting in a chair and he's talking to someone who isn't there. A missing father, a boss, whomever, I don't know. So these are exercises, and we've used them, and we know how they work, and we know they work well, etc., and so forth. Experiments grow out of the here and now. Their relationship that's going on with the client. So you get to know the client, and you know some things that might work with them, and you can utilize those to help the client bridge the gap and make contact, which is what they're for. A warning label on Gestalt. Not all powerful emotions experienced are therapeutic or abreactive. And there's ethical issues abound in triggering a client's emotions, particularly if you're doing that just because you can. And the relative success of your counseling relationship is not measured in how many boxes of Kleenex you go through monthly, right? There's also some other problems. People who are not adept at using experiments or exercises can cause distress or psychological emotional damage to the clients. When I was an undergrad and studying this initially, I was at the University of Houston, and a man and his wife were teaching a class on the family, and I was taking the class, and in any case, they did a role play where members of the class were assigned roles to play in the family. And my friend Bill W., not that Bill W., Bill Womack W., but he was the identified alcoholic, and the couple assigned him a wife and some kids and some friends, and they were going to do this role play. Well, next thing you know, and you'll discover this anytime you're doing psychodrama or role playing or anything like that, the characters are not real, or they're not the real characters. The scenario is not necessarily the real scenario. I mean, the instructors set this up kind of meticulously to tell us, what was going on, and they're with this running narrative they were using. But the emotions, you can take it to the bank. The emotions were real, and they got out of hand real quickly, and there was some cussing and crying and yelling going on. I got up and walked out of the room with some other people too. We went out because it was very clear that the instructors had lost control of the process, and they had, which is why if we do that kind of stuff, and we're not going to do it online, but in class when we do, I am very on top of not letting it get too deep, because I don't want it to get too deep and get out of control, and people are hurt because of that. So the emotions that we access in there can get real fast, or can get real powerful, real raw, real fast, and you have to be careful with that. And you should never upset people just because you can. You need to have some purpose if you're going to if you're going to help people touch their sadness or touch their grief or whatever. Confrontation is long a component of Gestalt. Gestalt is also not liked by some people because it is confrontational. And quick self-disclosure, I'm not a fan of confrontation. There's times when it's called for and you need to do it, but most of the time I don't like it. And if you do a confrontation, you should never be in your client's face, speaking abusively to them or anything like that. Sometimes I know that people, substance abuse counselors, people who work as as addiction treatment professionals, we have a record. Have a reputation, and people say things like, "Well, you can't bullshit a bullshitter." Sure, you can. I can be had just like anybody else. So can you. We've been there, done that. We know all about it. That doesn't make us experts on someone else's life. That doesn't make us experts on someone else's recovery. The thing of the matter is that if I'm running around confronting people all the time, the real reason that I'm doing it, that I'm confronting people, is because my other skills are lacking. If my confrontation is my go-to thing in counseling, is my hammer, the only tool I have in my toolbox, then everything I encounter in counseling looks like a nail. I'll drag it out and smack them with it, But confrontation is a skill that you need to learn, and you need to do it, to do it well. Here are several types of confrontation. They can be subdivided other ways too. An experiential confrontation is, I'm going the wrong way. An experiential confrontation is when someone is saying or doing something and you perceive that they're not telling you the truth, that they're being incongruent in the moment right now. If they have frozen tears, but they're telling you, "I'm all right, everything's going well at home," or they're you can do a heavy-handed confrontation and tell them, "Well, if you're so happy, why don't you tell your face, man, because you don't look happy." But I just let them know that I hear your words, I hear what you're saying, but right now I'm getting a sense that you're really not happy, that in fact you're kind of sad or angry or lonely or whatever it happens to be. And that's just telling you, this is what I see. It's what I think I see, and so we have a chance to discuss that. A factual confrontation. This is probably the easiest one. If I tell you that I went down to the bay and caught a 4-pound sunfish out of the bay this morning, it was great. You might say to me, "H, I don't know what you caught out of the bay, but it wasn't a sunfish because they don't live in our bay. And they live in our streams and our lakes and our ponds and our rivers, but not in the bay, because sunfish are freshwater and the bay is saltwater." And even a weightlifting, steroid-using sunfish is not going to get up larger than 1.5 pounds or so. He doesn't get up to 4 pounds. You may have caught something else that looked like him. This is a factual, and you can do this in a way where you're not calling someone a liar, because they may not be lying to you. Understand that if I tell you something that's not true, but I believe that it is true, it's not a lie. It's a mistake. There's an error there, and you can disabuse me of that error, and that's a good thing. But you have to do it in such a way so I don't get defensive, and where I can hear you. If you do it in a way that makes me defensive, then we just butt heads and argue about it. It becomes a are so, are not, did to, did not, kind of thing. And no one gets anywhere with that. A strength confrontation occurs when someone claims weakness, and you point out to them that they have ability. I can't do that. I'm not smart enough. I'm not strong enough. Everything I touch turns to crap. I can't get anything right. And the way you make this type of confrontation is you point out strengths to them. You show them where they have been successful. You give them an affirmation or two. And this isn't lying to them or fluffing them or anything like that. I mean, you're being honest and you're pointing out truth, and they're able to move forward with that. A weakness confrontation. You know what? I just described a weakness confrontation. Those of you who are taking notes, you're going to have to readjust. Strength confrontation is a weakness confrontation is pointing out strength, and strength confrontation is telling people you don't have to hold it together here. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be honest. It's okay to be confused. You don't have to be strong all the time. And that's a strength confrontation, pointing them out to me. And here is safe. You can let it go. And then an action confrontation. When I was working in Deer Park a long time back, I got a box of these little particle board discs that were called round tuits. It was ROUND, one word, TUIT, tuit, round tuit. And I had them in a box on my desk so that if anyone said to me, I'll get around to it, I would pick one up and toss it to them and say, here you go. And on one side it said round to it, and on the other side it said just do it. D-U-I-T again. Cutesy poo, huh? And so as challenged him, how do you try to go to an AA meeting? Did you go to your AA meeting you said you were going to last Wednesday? Well, I tried. How do you try to go to an AA meeting? You either do it or you don't do it. And if you didn't do it, that's okay, but don't tell me you tried. What, did you get kidnapped by pirates on the way? What happened? You either go there or you don't go there. And so those kind of challenges, are also confrontations. And they don't have to be fights. You don't have to, break people down and make them surrender or any of that kind of stuff. It's just challenging the things that they're saying and pointing them out to them, where they're pointing it out to them where their justifications, their excuses, things like that just aren't holding up. Some Gestalt interventions, internal dialogue. This is sometimes referred to as overdog, underdog. We have conversations going on in our heads all the time, even those of us who aren't nuts, right? We've got conversations going on in our heads all the time. You can do this. No, I can't. Yes, you can. Give it a try. I don't want to. And the internal dialogue, you can get people in group, for instance, and have them argue two sides of their dilemma. You can have them argue their underdog and their overdog. And it's the same individual, and maybe you'll have them switch chairs when they do it. You can vary this with the empty chair technique. And there's been the old saying, that there are two wolves who struggle inside us, and which one wins? The the good wolf and the bad wolf. Which one wins? Is the one you feed. That's cute too, isn't it? But internal dialogues is to make you aware of how your self-talk encourages you or limits you or whatever. Argue for your limitations, and sure enough, they're yours. Empty chair technique, I talked about that before, but you can use this to talk to a missing person, someone who's not there. I've used this, like with family members or with wives, or wives or husbands or parents or that sort of thing. I've used the empty chair technique to to do a rehearsal exercise where you're practicing talking to your boss or your doctor or whatever, and helping people get comfortable with that, helping them get comfortable with doing a job interview. But the empty chair technique gets very real at times too, and emotions can get pretty raw around that. A variation on that too is, I've seen it done with couples therapy, is translation, where the couple sit in chairs and face each other and they talk to each other while the facilitator and co-facilitator stand behind. Each one stands behind, the husband or the wife or whatever, and translates what the other person's telling, as the way the objective listener, the person behind the people speaking, is hearing what the messages are, and it shocks the people who are involved in the exchange, in the dialogue. Future projection has people do things like act as if you're successful in your recovery and it's 5 years into the future. What are you doing right now? How are you doing this? This kind of thing. Making the rounds. The example I used a while ago is a variation of making the rounds, where I ask someone to say something to everyone in the group. That's a version of making the rounds. But generally, when people are saying making the rounds, they're trying to get something out of everyone in the group. I go around and tell me something today that you're grateful for instance. That's making the rounds. Lightweight version of making the rounds, but making the rounds nevertheless. Reversal exercise. Be the other side of whatever dilemma that you're facing right now, or whatever problem that you're having. Put yourself in the other person's place if you're having a conflict, and be that other person for a while. The reversal exercise too is very useful in working with groups and couples and things like that. Rehearsal exercise, practicing to do something, practicing for a confrontation, practicing for a job interview, practicing for whatever it is that you're going to do. The exaggeration exercise is you can also do it as an experiment. If you're tapping your foot nervously in a Gestalt group or drumming your fingers on the table, then the facilitator may tell you to do it faster, do it harder, do it with both hands, and cause you to consider what's going on with you, what you're feeling, what this nervous tick happens to be doing for you in the moment, etc. Staying with the feeling is another really, really important aspect of Gestalt. Remember that when we is very normal for human beings, probably for any organism, to not want to feel unpleasant emotions or sensations. And there are things that when you go into counseling, damn it. Some of the things that the counselor asks you to do are, is think about things you've spent a lifetime trying not to think about. Feel some of the stuff that you've been running from feeling for the last 30 years or so. Nothing hard in that, right? When we start feeling something unpleasant, our natural tendencies to suck it up and move on to something else. Stuff that feeling back, put it back inside me, swallow it, if you will. And I don't want to have that feeling for a number of reasons. It hurts. I'm afraid of it. I'm afraid of what I'll say. I'm afraid of what I'll do, that kind of things. And when you're stuffing an emotion, you're putting it in a place and hoping that it won't get out. And the way you try to keep it from getting out is to make the container tighter, stronger, lock it in more firmly. if you take all of the explosives that in a stick of dynamite or a hand grenade and put them on a piece of table, put it on the table, the explosive material, and set it off, it would go. It doesn't do hardly anything. But if you wrap it tightly with these pieces of wire, detonation wire and things like that, and then put it in that fragmentable shell, and you make it real tight and put a firing pin in there so that there'll be a spark to ignite it. It will kill everything in the room big enough to die. And that's because it was compressed and to a very dangerous level. And our emotions are like that sometimes too. If we face them and let them go, sometimes they're paper tigers. Not all the time. I mean, as a friend of mine once told me, in times of tribulation, you tribulate. And some of these feelings are real ugly and hard to deal with, and they are. Others aren't much. And I can't make that decision for you, how your emotion's going to be, what it's going to feel like. But I can help you go through them, and I can attend you while you are. In conclusion, some final thoughts. Gestalt is a good technique for group work. Exercises and experiments quickly involve clients in the process. They get into it pretty quickly. Some clients don't like this approach because they need more direction. They want us to, more structure in what we're doing, more direction and goals to move toward. And they don't like Gestalt experiences because they're gimmicky. A number of Gestalt techniques are effectively applied to substance use disordered clients, and these are they're good to use in a substance use group. Frankie Petrowski, who's still around and still a counselor in Houston, from what I understand, when I was first introduced to sobriety back in the late 70s. Tried very hard to get me to do a trust fall. A trust fall is where you cross your arms, close your eyes, and fall backwards, hoping someone else will catch you. And I just couldn't do it, And he said, "What's the matter, dude? Do you really think I won't catch you? That I'll just let you hit the floor?" And I tell him, "Frankie, I have no doubt you'd try to catch me." But I just can't get there to where you would, where you'd be successful. So anyway, counselors do need training and skills to use this approach beyond what you're getting right here, right now in the classroom. And working with someone who uses these types of, if you're working with someone who uses these type of techniques, don't be shy. Ask them, what are we trying to do with this? What are we trying to achieve here? Is there any risk to the clients? How do we prepare them? And it is very important to prepare clients and give them an out, give them some way where they can bail on this if it gets too intense, And I always tell, anytime I'm doing something like a family sculpting or something like that, I tell everyone in it, you don't want to do this anymore, just say, I don't want to do this, or I'm done. I won't ask you any questions on why. I won't try to talk you into it, staying or whatever. Just, I'm done. And that's all I need to know. And you can go, bail out on it. So, get people ready and let them know what to expect. And this is a very good a very good approach to helping people contact themselves. It may even help them stop drinking, which is what we'd like for them to do. Okay, I guess that's that for Chapter 8, and I'll see you in Chapter 9. Bye.